All right, you ready?
Yeah,
All right, cool. Damn. Am I ready? Hello, and welcome to the inaugural Indie Book Club podcast. My name is Graydon, and I am joined today by the lovely Allan Muir. How are you doing?
I'm alone.
You are alone. Aren't we all alone? And this is because we are playing the critically acclaimed, I think it was critically acclaimed. I'd have to look into that, but I believe it was well received. Indie title Thomas Was Alone. Now, if you have kept up with anything that I have posted in various places, we spent last week, we played the first 5 chapters, which was actually chapters 0 to 4. And like, it's weird that it starts on 0.1. I totally forgot that it did that. So apologies for being misleading, but if anybody went ahead, that's fine. And yeah, we're just going to kind of discuss briefly in this here podcast that first half of the game and just kind of chat about our feelings on it. So, as I said, Thomas Was Alone is a game created by Mike Bithell. It was published by him as well. I thought it was a Curve Digital game. Actually, I was looking up Curve Digital earlier. Now they're just called Curve Games, and they published a ton of indies and still are doing so. Um,
That's good to hear.
yeah, I think the last thing they did was that I Am Fish game. They also did Just Die Already. They've done things like, remember Manual Samuel? That was that was a fun one. Uh, they did a lot of games on that came to Vita, which kind of brings me to my first question for you. Where did you play this on?
I played this on. Well, first I made a really bad decision to try playing it on Steam Deck. Um,
Bad
because
decision, how?
so it's not it's it's playable, but not actually supported by Valve, or at least gotten around. It hasn't been verified or deemed playable. So I had to mess with a bunch of settings within my Steam Deck docking station stuff. So I had to have it. So to have it go from the regular, like the native Steam Deck resolution to go to 1080.
Okay. So did you end up playing it in that docked mode?
So I played most of the majority, like from from the beginning to 4.3. I'd played most of it on Steam Deck, yeah. But then I realized I just couldn't keep. It was getting too painful because I would get to a certain point and my controller would just spaz out,
Okay. That's no
and
good.
that's yeah. So I ended up playing the remaining 7 parts of chapter of Purge on on my PC.
Okay.
I think I have it. I own it on Vita. Not sure, but speaking of that, listeners, Josh Miller was going to be a part of this, but his Vita is no longer functional.
Yeah, that was really, really depressing to hear. I think he said that it, like, seemed to be a battery thing, but then it also, like, that got working, and then the sound wasn't working, and yeah. I mean, it stinks. It's hard because it's not impossible to find a Vita these days. I know that a lot of them are, like, even, like, $100 or possibly less at, uh, just those little game hobby shops, but it it's really a hit or miss on if you would want to buy one these days. Like, I've always been jealous of Emmett's orange one, and I never got what was the second version? Was it the OLED? Was the updated?
Yeah,
Yeah, so I never got an OLED version, and I thought about getting just 2 birds with 1 stone there. So I might at some point, but
yeah. I've I have an OLED Vita, but I I don't know if Josh mentioned it, whether or not his Vita, the one he like the the one that had the problem. I don't know if he said that it was if he made it clear that it was a launch version because my launch Vita had the same exact thing happen where this or at least either had a same thing happen or the screen just got cracked and I charged it and I could hear everything and things make noise, but I couldn't see a single thing. And I no longer have that Vita.
oh,
Yeah.
that is indeed a shame. Yeah, I think my Vita is still maybe not launch, but one of the original versions, and the only problem it's really ever had is some slight battery issues, like, it just didn't wanna charge, or that cord was always so flimsy, and so I had some little issues where I had to, like, hard reboot it. Not to factory reset, but just, like, that weird remember you had to held the home button and the plus button and, like, get into a weird b menu. It was other than that, things have still been going okay with my Vita, thankfully. But the the Vita talk is good because that was how I first played this game, and to kinda bring it back to that point I was just making, like, I feel Vita, we all love it here at VGU, and it really did find its niche in the indie space or the JRPG space, and I feel like it was just the perfect indie machine for, like I said, those Curve Digital games they were making. They developed, did you ever play Stealth Inc?
Oh, I own Stealth Inc. on on Vita.
Yeah, those both of those games are really, really good, and they control really well on the Vita. They're just fun little I remember many a vacation of just loading up those indies, and that was how I played some of these crazy things. And one of them was Thomas Was Alone, and I remember it just really it just kept coming to different consoles. It started as a Flash game in 2010. It was then released in 2012 for PC and Mac, and then it has come to Linux, PS3, PS4, Vita, Xbox One, Wii U, iOS, Android, and Switch. So they have just kept making these things, and one of the my favorite one of the things I remember vividly about this game was finishing it on a vacation, crying, and then going and installing it on my mom's phone and being like, "You have to play this." And I'm certain she didn't, but just the ease of access for anybody to play this game, which really isn't it's not super difficult. It has a bit of a curve, but I really think that this is, especially for the amount of time that you put into it, this is like 2 to 2.5 hours full game, and it's just perfect for someone really trying out an indie and getting, such a good little story out of something so minimalist and simplistic like that. And yeah, I mean, my other question that I was gonna ask regarding these things is, have you ever played well, you hadn't played this game before at all, right?
This is technically the first game I played uh, that Mike Bithell made.
Alright. Well, that was my second question to it, was if you had ever played a Bithell game, because I mean, Mike Bithell's still out there doing things, most notably this year, he made, Tron well, he and his team at Bithell Games made, Tron Identity,
Yeah.
which it was eh I played it at least 1 round I did, because it's really big for replaying it, a narrative-driven, I mean, visual novel in a sense, and it's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it for something like a Switch, or I mean, this would have been again, it would have been a perfect Vita game. But, yeah, Bithell also made Volume, which was a Vita exclusive, or was that did that come to console?
I think it's on. I think I'm pretty sure it is. It's no longer a Vita exclusive. It's on Steam, as far as I know. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. What am I saying?
Yeah, they I mean, and the
I
oh, go ahead.
No, I can't believe that Thomas Was Alone came out in 2012.
Yeah.
I'm not. But I'm simultaneously shocked and not shocked at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, I was shocked that it was a Flash game 2 years before that. Like, a lot of these games we find, were Flash games before. I don't know where you would have found them. I wasn't playing, like, My Friend Pedro was another one that started off as a Flash game. I wasn't playing it there, and I didn't know about it until it was a console game, but that's really, like, that Newgrounds or, I don't know, addicting games, I guess. Like that was the world of people trying to see what works and really getting their start at just making these easy little games. And that's really I mean, then the mobile space really brought that to light, let them let them expand upon those skills, and then we get little gems like this one. So I knew that I wanted to revisit this game. I knew that ever since I thought up indie book club, I was like, I want to start with this game because it's something so short. Probably most people have access to it because it's been, I believe it was a PS Plus game, and it's available on everything for so cheap all the time. So yeah, I
And
mean, yeah,
even it's just a cheap game in general. Like it's like 9.99 on Steam, as far as I know.
yeah, and I believe Wario 64 still mentions it when it's on sale, and I've seen it be like $4 on Switch, probably even Steam too in the sales, but it goes down to just a couple of bucks. And it's I mean that's perfect for people who think, "Oh, this game's not long enough to be worth my money." Like that's
Yeah.
that's the perfect price, but also thinking like that sucks.
Yeah.
So I mean, you spend your money on what you want to spend it on, but this game is not it I mean, it's one of those ones that is so that's why I love narrative-based things or really strong narratives, because you can just go back to them every couple of years, completely forget all about it, and then relive that journey again. So this is just a fun one to keep going back to every so often, and now we're here.
This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment.
So, looking at my little docket here, I think I'm gonna kinda read off a little synopsis of what we saw, and we can just kinda chat about how we thought with each chapter. So, we begin with chapter 1, or rather chapter 0.1, I guess is the first part. It's called Spawn, this whole chapter. And yeah, Thomas begins his journey alone, taking notes on his newfound life. He wonders why he is here and where he's going, and he also learns that the world is a dangerous and unforgiving place. A test, sort of. Thomas is becoming smarter, a skilled jumper, and he considers the world a training exercise, albeit a lonely one. So I guess I'll just like ask, what was your first thought going into this? Like, had you ever played a game
Like
similar to
this?
this? Yeah.
No. Or the okay, this is gonna sound it's gonna be a very me answer. The only game that this reminded me of was Super Meat Boy.
Okay. No, that's a very I think a very common answer for if you asked anyone about this game. It's got that style. It's very I mean, like I said earlier, it's not super hard. Like I feel like you say Super Meat Boy and people think, "Oh, it's like unforgiving," but it just has that it it's got a very forgiving system, I think. The levels are so short that
Oh no, it has nothing to do with difficulty. Nothing like it has nothing to do with difficulty. The jumping is mainly the jumping system and the overall feel of it. Like Super Meat Boy, I got heavily into back when I was in high school.
Mhm.
Like right when it came out on Xbox 360 or XBLA.
Yeah.
And okay, so you know how with Super Meat Boy, Mario Brothers, they have the certain like they have each like every time you jump, there's a certain arc you can pretty much draw on or draw over with like a line paper.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
It This game, like the jumping in this or the platforming in this game reminds me like has that feeling to it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very, what I like about the characters and the variation is that all of them seem to have their own limits of like some of them can only jump this high or some of them can only move this fast, and you really get that variety of gameplay out of what you're talking about, and it just makes that platforming feel fresh every time. Like you really do feel as though you're controlling a party of characters that can do different things, and that's super unique for something like this where you would typically be playing one one character that controls a certain way and maybe gets like abilities over time that change the way that they traverse, but you're here, like, not to spoil it, but I think that that kind of stays the same for the most part. Like everyone's just gonna, this person's gonna jump like this the whole game, this person's gonna do this, but it's rely on each other's skills, and that's what makes this game feel so different, and I really enjoy that. Have you ever played Celeste?
I have not. I have it installed on Switch and I think Steam. Either no Steam or Epic Games Store. Um,
Okay. And did you beat Meat Boy?
you gotta
Yeah, I do have to rephrase that. My God. Did you did you beat Super Meat Boy, the game?
yeah, I beat the game, but or 15, 16-year-old me beat the game. But if I try it again, this at my age and my adult reflexes, it would not be it would be very difficult.
Yeah, no, I get that. Because like Celeste definitely offers a challenge that is more akin to Super Meat Boy, but it has a narrative that is really, really good. Like to the point that I might even throw that into IBC later on, just because that would be fun to go back and do. And this would just I think that you might really enjoy that one.
Oh,
Um,
I know I will because I've seen people like I've seen it on lists of people like saying this how the game helps with um certain like it appeals to certain people or certain variety of people who have certain issues.
yeah, do you mean like the mental health aspect of it all?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of really good depictions with anxiety and grief, and it's just a really good story for that kind of thing. I feel like in terms of mental health, I've really wanted to play Spiritfarer. I remember that Josh really liked that game, and that does a lot of touches a lot on that too. But yes, alas, these are games for other times.
Um
So yeah.
just a game that I think would be a stellar uh indie book club episode or
Mhm.
one. The first Hellblade
Ooh.
because that yeah that when I was going through some of my dark days in like 2017, 2018, I tried the game. I played it on PC and with headphones as it's heavily recommended by the developers.
Mhm.
And yeah, that game it makes it does for it's kind of what Celeste would be if it were like it's in like a higher echelon in terms of production and overall storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, now it's considered a first-party title, right? Well,
Yeah,
the second one will be,
the second one, yeah.
but obviously it left such an impact on Xbox to be to have them be acquired, but yes, that is Hellblade is quite the journey, and I think it's not too long either, but it would be fun to revisit that one. Maybe we can do that, like, when we finally have a good time frame on the second one, we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
have that lined up so that we can get everybody in on it, because that is a crazy time, and that would be cool to see how it affects everybody. It's a weird experience. I've definitely heard a lot of people have different opinions. So we move on to chapter 2, dubbed Array. Christopher is spawned, which I have them written down. So Thomas is a red rectangle, because this is important with Thomas was alone. We're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
shapes. We're talking about these AI that are in the form of multicolored shapes, and that's really all we're looking at. There's some water, there's some particle effects, and it really just needs to be experienced to be
There
believed.
there are some blades that will mess you up.
There are. There's some spikes and some blades and some moving platforms and maybe a pixel cloud in there that
Yeah, so it's that's actually what in particular like really got me in terms of how like the game's charm is how simple and minimalist it is.
yeah.
And there's really it's considering its beginnings and origin. I'm really glad that there hasn't been. This is why I like video games, like rather than
Mhm.
films, where obviously the big thing is revisions of famous big like of cult movies or big movies that something is lost in the revitalization of it. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those, like, uh, hopefully untouchable experiences. And I mean, I was having this existential crisis the other day where I thought, now in a world where every game is like recorded into let's play form and you can just watch any game like a movie on YouTube, I was just thinking, like, why do we even really need to play video games anymore? But then, like, you look at something like this and it just the pacing and the unknown is really what what takes you into a game and experience. And so seeing things like how much time you want to spend with these characters, with these levels, and especially something with a challenge like this where it's really about overcoming every level and really getting through the next one and building that story based off of what you've put into it is rewarding. And it's a lot different than just seeing it as a movie. That's like you say, that's why games are really cool. You get to live that experience. So even though this game is the length of a basic movie, um, you can really just you make it your own with something so out of something so small and simplistic as this. So we have Thomas, our red rectangle, and now Christopher, an orange square, is spawned. Very jealous of Thomas's jumping at first. They rely on each other to reach new heights, but Christopher has a hard time accepting Thomas, finding him arrogant, even hating him at times. He hopes they don't have to be together forever, but Thomas admires the companionship and the challenge. John arrives very confidently. John is a yellow long rectangle and with great jumping ability and speed. He cares for the others immediately and sees them as enhancements to his skills. As the narrator states, he decides to keep them. So I mentioned it a little there, but how do you feel about the narration in general?
Oh, so um, this was one of the things that was one of the catalysts for a certain thing that is going to be happening with the on the site. Get some written stuff that we're going
Mm,
to do because uh, Danny Wallace, who is the narrator for this game,
I know that name.
he also it plays Sean Hastings in Assassin's Creed.
Oh, that is him.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, wow.
yeah, he's
Kind of a prolific voiceover um, I feel.
um he's he's actually more of a he's known for his comedic like for his actually this I found I learned which I just he he began writing reviews for video game magazines at the age of 13 for schoolwork experience.
Oh, wow. So he's heavily invested in this industry.
Yeah, but no, well he mainly he started writing comedy at like or when he was 18.
Wow.
He then he then worked at the BBC and was part of Dead Ringers. He was he, he was the original producer of The Mighty Boosh.
Why do I know that name?
The Mighty Boosh is a series with Noel Fielding,
Oh, geez.
and it ran on. I think um, the whole thing was basically it was just it's one of the best comedy shows that's actually aged kind of well.
Okay.
And he ended up he's done a lot. And looking at and just yeah, it's I came into this whole thing without any idea what was like. I had no expectations, and you've seen me, you know, from me letting t- typing this in the chat, so just how much I hate puzzles in games.
Mhm.
The puzzles in this game, and even just the rudimentary ones, I was enjoying I was literally enjoying every minute of the first half of the game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I really think it is to be commended for how accessible it is, and I'm a similar way. I mean, I've come around to saying that I really do enjoy puzzle games, but I think that there's definitely a certain limit where I'll just be like, I'm not I'm not finishing this. Like I cannot do this. But this one is super easy to get behind and not too daunting. And it's just one of those, yeah, it can feel at times like a get good situation. But I mean the biggest thing that I saw to kind of skip ahead to one of my later things, I did have a kind of glitchy experience in certain spots. I was playing on PS4 this time, and I didn't remember it being so glitchy in certain areas. Particularly, there was one level where I had to ride platforms. They were up and down platforms on the left and right side, and you had to kind of wait for them to come around. There was like 5 different ones to jump to, and you had to bring all of the shapes across all of these platforms, and they all jump in different ways. And I would put them if I had them anywhere on like the rightmost
Oh,
50% of a
I know what you're talking about. They would get bumped off.
yeah, they would start to slide. And
Yeah, I when that happened, I just basically just planned around it. Like I ended up just going, you know what? At a certain point, I because they all have their limitations. I ended up rather than going in the order I would normally do of the best ones will go like the ones that can get there easier will I'll go that route first. I did the reverse and had Chris and a character who I don't think has shown up yet, or we haven't gotten to yet.
Was it a certain bouncy one?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, the bouncy one was kind of my friend in that situation exactly because again, they had to kind of hang over the edge, which would start them sliding, but I would just be like, "Go, go, go." Send everybody bouncing because that's another little thing is like you kind of realize over time that some of these levels are just like just screw it and and then throw
yeah,
it at a wall and see what sticks, which is very like it can be chaotic and sometimes in the back of your head think, is this game broken? But like it'll always work. I mean, there are certain another character that I haven't mentioned yet that can like that can go in the water.
it's very
And
buoyant.
yeah, very buoyant and they can jump on the water. And so sometimes I would just kinda like I find myself doing a lot of jump and then I'll put someone on top of a platform, on top of another character, have them jump, quickly switch to the other one, have them jump to boost up the one I'm not controlling, and you're just kinda like, especially with a controller, just smashing buttons until you get on a platform and then you're just like, "Alright, deep breath." Like
Yeah, the one nearing the end of um chapter 4, when things started getting really heavy in terms of um like the drama or the storytelling. There's the certain part where you have to quickly go into like quickly bounce between characters, and I was freaking out. I was not I was getting very nervous very easily because one had to be on the water, one had to be above the water, and there was a certain thing that was happening that would, if a certain thing was closing in on said characters, and it was just and the thing is, while I was very nervous and overall happy once it was over, I totally would have done it again because it was just interesting to see how process the challenge of doing that particular puzzle.
Yeah, you just kinda like and that's the fun part of replaying this, I think, is you can really see how many ways that there are to do this, and the joy of talking about it now is like there's so many ways to go about completing these puzzles sometimes. I think there's one where the narrator kinda mentions, "Oh, there's so many there's tons of things you
Yeah,
can do here," and and that's just really cool because 'cause you're just handed, like, a bag of characters, and it's like, "Go for it. See what sticks." So and like you said, it's really not very stressful. Like, you really don't feel anxious doing things. There are some that feel a bit more timed, one in particular, maybe the one you're talking about, where there's just rising water and you kinda gotta fit through gaps, but other than that, like, it doesn't feel super anxious. One of my favorite ones is when a character is falling, like, kinda free
oh,
falling.
yes, that moment was actually that it felt like a nice change of pace.
Yeah, it was exactly, exactly, and I will mention that when that appears. Um, so, yeah, so we move on to chapter 012, chapter 2, Origin. Claire appears. Claire is a large blue square, falling to her doom upon crumbling pillars.
Yeah, that was actually a really good fake out.
Yeah, did that, like, get you like,
Yeah,
"Huh?"
I was like, okay, is this gonna? And I like that I didn't try to see if I could just jump off the side,
Oh, I
and
wonder.
yeah, and I don't even know if that was a potential option. But I just figured, you know what? I'll see where this goes, and I was I should have figured it out based on just how things work with that particular shape,
True.
and how just how things work with it's just mainly how
It's physics.
Yeah, it's how physics works.
Like, of course it does. And it works great because, she hits the water and survives miraculously. And this
And
works.
also
Yeah, go ahead.
this the whole thing, the whole narration of the by Danny Wallace of this particular stretch, um, was my favorite.
Yeah, there's a lot of good humor in it that just kinda works deadpan-wise.
It felt okay. So this felt, and this if I'd played the game before playing the game I'm about to mention, I'd probably think of the opposite of what I was gonna say. I was getting vibes. I was getting like feelings of Steve Merchant in Portal 2, but upped in terms of um upped in terms of performance, like in terms of bombast.
Definitely, I can see that. Another one is, Stanley Parable.
Yes, yes,
Like, just that. I mean, I know they're all 3 of them are British,
yeah,
which helps, but just that, like, omniscient narrator that just makes fun of you at your expense in a way, but also, I mean, I feel the Thomas Was Alone one is a bit more endearing and wants to see them, uh, succeed.
succeed. Yeah,
Which is different than the contrast of I was referring to them in my notes as cutscenes, but before every chapter, there's a quote that comes from whoever made this AI program, and that's really where you're getting your exposition of the overall story. They mentioned things like the emergence event, and later on they mentioned that Thomas is special. And like you're kind of seeing it's foreshadowing how things will probably wrap up. Honestly, I forget how it ends, so I can't even accidentally spoil it. But
good, good.
yeah, no. But it's interesting because you see that to start off the chapter and you're like, "What did I just read?" And then you just go into, "Oh, well, we're back here with our shape friends." And so, yeah, I mean, that kinda narration is really neat where they're part of the game, and, and I get what you mean with Portal 2. It's like especially for at least that first half where he doesn't know
Yeah.
what's going on, um, it's yeah, very similar, and it just brings you along. So, yeah,
Well,
as oh, good.
I was just gonna say that with Portal 2, it's a bit of that until the turning point in Portal 2 where it goes back to how things were in Portal 1.
Mhm.
Whereas with Stanley Parable, it's more of a Truman Show type experience.
Yes, I agree. He's a bit more omniscient.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a Will Ferrell movie where it's Emma Thompson is in it.
Uh, oh, that one where he's a writer?
No, 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 she's the writer and he's the character she's trying to kill off in her book. But
Oh, yeah, it's like Read It and not Read It and Weep, that's a Disney Channel movie. Oh, man, Will Ferrell, Emma Thompson movie. It is Stranger Than Fiction.
yes, I that is yeah, because I mean that yeah, because that is arguably my favorite Will Ferrell movie.
That is a good movie. Yeah, just that crazy I mean, another one that I just thought of is Little Big Planet does that.
Yeah, yeah, with Stephen Fry.
Again, British narrator who adds humor and a bit of a all-knowing aspect. But I think that Little Big Planet's a bit similar to this, where he's kind of like, "Oh yes, now you've done this," and he ushers you along, but not in a way that's condescending. Just wants you to succeed. And when Thomas Was Alone, it feels a lot like the narrator is another character, and I like that a lot. So yeah, so she hits the water and survives. She insists she has superpowers. This is Claire, and daydreams about her costume and superhero name as she meets the others, leading them to safety along the way, even considering Thomas as a sidekick. She ultimately chooses Diabolical Chris as her supervillain. Over time, Chris disappears, then the others, and she is left alone. Thomas appears, and they complete the same mission twice, which baffles Claire. That was a weird little moment where it's like you do that. I think it's that final part of chapter 2 where you do a mission and then Thomas shows up and then you do the mission again. And so far it hasn't really been hinted at again. I mean, we see our antagonists in the next chapter, but we don't have that, like, why was there a glitch in the system? Like that was odd. I want to see if there's a note I had on that. Ba-ba-ba. No, not really. Should I move on to the next chapter, or did you want to say something about those missions?
Uh, Now let's move on to the next chapter because, or the only thing I will say, it felt very, it felt very deja vu, and like, I'm gonna bring up another game, but only in terms of like not because this game is, because I only played a little bit of that game and that was well over 15 years ago. Um, the way you're going through the world, the like you're going through the game, like through each protagonist, or for this, at least for that mission, for the mission, or not the mission, the chapter,
At level?
that level. I imagine it's more like Echochrome,
Oh,
where it's Claire does her thing, and while Claire's doing her thing, the whole thing is the whole machine is turning, or turning and rotating, and Thomas comes through after doing whatever he was doing. So I imagine it's more of,
like their paths intersect.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
but
I
I
feel that.
but then yeah, then things go off the rails.
Yeah, Echo Chrome is great. That was one that I used to play that demo a lot, and then I think I bought it, but I never really finished it much. I did recently play Monument Valley for the first time, which is very very similar, and yeah, just another great game with weird, like, optical illusion, trippy environments.
When you get a chance, play Viewfinder.
Yes, Viewfinder is one I definitely wanna play. What's the other one? Manifold Garden?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one. All those weird little puzzle games. Oh, there's so many things. I wanna play Talos Principle because the second one just came out. Oh, man. I love puzzle games, dude. Oh. Moving on. So chapter 3, games chapter 3, our chapter 4, called Associations. Chris is back, and we meet Laura, who is a long purple rectangle, a horizontal long magenta rectangle. That's that's how I described her. Um, so we meet Lara, who knows of his existence but fears them ever meeting because they kind of show up on two different planes, and she's kind of weary of what will happen if they meet. Lara also knows of the quote ominous pixel cloud following her that has finally shown itself to us. Chris can bounce atop Lara, and she begins to have feelings for him. That sounds gross, but it's not. They're shapes. Get your mind out of the gutter. Missing him when they are apart. Chris is absolutely smitten as well, but their current situation with the Pixel Cloud leaves them wary. Eventually, they meet up with the gang again, to Chris's dismay. Chris's whole thing is that he's kind of grumpy all the time, but Lara brings out a different side in him. The others seem to like her bounciness, but they don't really care for her and talk to her like Chris does. He finds them rude, but they simply fear her Pixel Cloud. Lara likes them back though, and by the end of chapter 3, the whole gang is back together. So, I mean, a bit more of a nicer one, but you finally get that enemy presence, which again, I not to spoil anything, I don't recall there being like a boss fight. It's not like there's an enemy, but it's just kind of there and it's looming and you're like, "Ooh, I don't know." But more of these your real bad guys are the spikes and the platforms and the water. But yeah, this Pixel Cloud, did you did it frighten you? Did it shake you to your very core when you first saw, ooh, an antagonist?
well, I had a feeling that it was gonna play out somehow like that, but the name Thomas was alone. But until when I got to a certain point, I realized, and this is why I deciding to split it, like to stop it at um chapter 4 was a great plan, because it left me after finishing 4.10 wanting to keep going, see where things went because of how it ended at that point.
Yeah, no, this next chapter is where things really start getting dark, and I didn't even plan it like that. I just thought, well, there's 10, let's go halfway. And it really was a good like stopping point for a check-in, because I mean things start getting pretty crazy as if this story is anything to go off of. So shall I talk about that final chapter?
Yeah, because it absolutely devastated me near the end.
Yeah, this I mean it. This game, like, the biggest thing I remember is that it is emotional, and I really do think I cried.
And they're not like um just the fact that they're shapes and you're crying about shapes.
You were
Show
crying about shapes.
it just shows the power of storytelling with, even if just simply the narrator. Yeah, actually, no, it's mainly the narration, and that without the narration, I don't think there would be that sense of like of humanizing the characters, or
Yeah.
like if this game feels like something that I would see on PBS in the 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
That was originally made in Britain and was just like shipped over.
Mhm. Like, with the narration and everything, you mean?
Yeah, like if it felt like something that would be like Paddington, like the 70s Paddington series that was stop motion animated, where there's no there's a narrator, and that's really it. There's no other voices.
Or Thomas the Tank Engine. There's just the narrator. Well, I guess that's voiced.
That's voiced.
Yeah.
Or the one I brought, I didn't actually bring up the name of it when we recorded the most recent Players Club. When I brought up station to station, um, there's a certain there was a BBC, not BBC, a there was a cartoon from the 70s, or originally in the 50s, then it came back in the 70s, called Ivor the Engine,
I think I've heard of that.
and it's honestly one of the most. It's probably the one thing I've watched. Like, I've watched at least a certain episode, like, because it just captures the whole slice of life, and it's a Welsh, uh, like it's based in Wales,
Uh,
and it's all cart like all it's very simply, like, very small production, and it just, I mean, it does it probably makes sense considering that Mike Bithell from is British. But I just feel like this is something that would be in that pantheon, or not pantheon, that group of cozy, um, cozy experiences that would just make you feel like you're a kid again, and just helps you, just can bring you the tears, but can also make you chuckle and laugh.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, this would be it's a nice little story for, like, say, a child to learn about
Yeah, well,
friendship and loss.
yeah,
And to kind of go back a little bit to what you were saying, like, I mean, one of my questions was, isn't it crazy how this game brings you to care about something as simple and dumb as shapes, colorful shapes? But like you said, if this didn't have the narrator, this could be sold as like like the was it the Impossible game or something? That one that's just like a side scroller jumping over you're a square jumping over triangles. Like it could just be shape platformer. But because you have that narration and that story foundation, you're given this crazy uh, personification of the nothing that you're playing. And it's just really wild that like I mean I hope that you cry and I hope that I cry again and that this is just like a real it ends really either sweetly or terribly or whatever it's going to be. And I'm just kind of like wow again because that was definitely how this game left me many years ago and it's just one of those special experiences.
Moving platforms over water, eh? Claire's newly heightened senses told her that there were multiple paths across with various possible configurations of the little posse. They were doing really well. Claire hoped she could get them all across. John was fully aware he could do this alone. Thomas hoped he'd never have to.
So to go to our final chapter that we have played here called Purge. In the opening cutscene, like I had said, we're told that Thomas is special. He doesn't want the pixel cloud around anymore and vows to do something. But before the next level comes, he is swept away by the cloud. Chris even misses him and feels guilty for bringing Laura and the cloud around. He falls through space in that aforementioned level that just falling. It was kind of like I don't know what that's like. Downwell? Is that the game? That's like just kind of falling and you have to dodge stuff.
Yeah. Also, there's that particular type of uh, structure, like that type of level. The one thing, like it's a type that's been it's a at this point a trope
True.
in certain video games.
Yeah, it's a bit cliche for platformers, but
Back then, back then, however, back in the olden days of 2012,
2012.
um, it was not overused as it is now.
True. Games were fresh back in the olden days of 2012. Everything was new.
They were authentic.
We were still making animated Disney princess films. Remember those kids? Anyway, um so yeah, Chris even misses him, feels bad. He falls through space and is also swept away. A couple levels later, Lara is swept away. Claire and John work together alone. Finally, after a frantic race from a wall of spikes, Claire is swept away, eaten, and John is alone. No audience for the first time in a long time because John is seen as like a performer and his being alone affects him rather rather greatly. And then he too is eaten in our final level. Our cast of characters lost to time. And how did Alan feel after that
Oh
happened?
man, I I was feeling pretty dang pretty dang sad.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's I'm trying to think of other games that really have like a I mean, back in the day of Final Fantasies and stuff, I mean, you still have Final Fantasies obviously, but just these games that have like a party that really goes around with you and to just think of like every one of them Halo Reach, every one of them not not making it. At least how we are right now, it sure looks bad, but hopefully things can be turned around. Did you go ahead at all, or did you like stop it right there?
So I hold on, let me check my Steam achievements, see if it. I began invert, and then I began invert, but then immediately before I even got a head chance to do anything, I just like it loaded in level, and I just immediately just backed out or quit the game and just yeah.
Okay,
But I will say
so
I bounced on Laura 100 times.
Oh, nice.
Part of the problem.
Is that an achievement?
That's a Steam achievement. Part of the problem. Bounce on Laura 100 times.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Ano-
that is part of the you are part of the problem.
and another and this actually goes if you look up the achievement, um, experience jumper, jump 1,600 times.
Oh, wow.
It's basically just it's two jump like two arcs, like two jumping arcs,
Okay.
and it's basically it's what I was saying earlier. So
You didn't get that yet, right?
what jump 1,600 times?
Yeah.
No, I did.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I guess I get that, and especially if you, like
Well, a lot of times I was just either just because because I didn't know what to do with a certain amount of these. I was just bouncing around, seeing like as you said, throwing everything at the wall and see what stuck. So obviously, I was gonna see what worked and what didn't work. The whole trial and error.
I guess so. To include another one of my questions going off of this, it, I'm getting specific, so you may not remember it. But do you recall a level where I think it's one where he was like, "Oh, there's multiple ways to go at this," and he was like, "John knew that he could do this no problem." Like I think it was the Claire, John, and maybe Thomas, and there's like three different beds of water, and you just had to like jump across. Do you remember this one at all?
Is well, okay. So would this be the one where
I wanna say it
um
was 2.8. I don't know if you have, like, your thing in front of you.
I think actually I accidentally looked at the community content, and I wish I didn't.
No, stop.
No, no, I didn't see anything spoiler. I saw the text of like
W
just a YouTube thumbnail. Thankfully, it wasn't spoilery, but
Okay, good. God, that would have killed me.
yeah. And then Alan was Justin from the podcast. Um, I don't remember. I think it was the one where you're bouncing on Laura, as the other characters, and there's like it's the one where there's the thin like there's the water, but the um the gap is noticeably small, so or not that big, like not that wide.
Oh, yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Is that the one where you, like, have to hit a button and then it makes it wider?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember what my initial question was, but that one was crazy too. There's just
Your initial question was the one where the narrator says there are multiple ways. If there about one where there are multiple ways to get
Right,
around said puzzle.
right. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to had you remembered it, I was just gonna be like, "How'd you do it?" But, I mean, it was an interesting thing, and it showed how there really are multiple ways. I mean, like, John can bound these big distances, so he could obviously jump over every bed of water and just make it to the end. But then you could go back and you could see, well, there are places you could use him, and I think with, like, Thomas, I had him basically ride Claire through the water and then make it to the other side, and it's just like, there's all these interesting things or like I said, she can just bounce across the water. She doesn't even need to bring anyone for a ride. It's just there's so many ways with these puzzles, and and I think that that's really cool. It adds this level of m put your own personality into it, your own thought, like, I'd love to see a speed run on this game. I've never seen one, I'm sure they exist, but to just see how some people do it, and definitely if there's bits like glitches with collision like we said and sliding off of things, people can use that to their advantage in speedruns all the time. So I bet that some of them would look really crazy, and I'll definitely have to look some of those up.
Well, actually, since you mentioned it, it was actually it was the end of it was 4.10 where I think it was 4.10. Where I did have a certain bug that happened.
Okay.
So you know how you had to jump on a bunch of the platforms that would then um each go separate, like they're each go the opposite way. So they form up, they space out, they
Yes,
form
yes,
back
I
up.
do remember that.
A certain part I was having trouble with because I would jump and I would get stuck on the wall, or I would get stuck on the wall of a different part of like a different platform. And yeah, there are some there are some odd physics with
Mhm.
this game, but it actually made it more like it made it actually much more exciting time because they're like the way physics work in this game are not how are not how they work in another game that would be like this. And I think that's the secret sauce of the game's success.
That it just feels so, like, kinda beginner in terms of game design.
Not even no, I wouldn't even say that. It was just that it's so you don't have the issue of, or you have these preconceived notions of how the different shapes will behave physics wise, and then you're just completely it's just you're completely the whole thing is completely subverted.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I think some of the best games are some great games are broken, like, from the start, and they rely on some glitches to just be more fun. And, I mean, I don't remember a lot of glitches in my first playthrough, but that can be console specific, and I mean, honestly, this was not the same engines that you would see today. It's a 10-year-old game engine. So I think it used Unity, but, like, I don't know which one. And I don't know how much knowledge he had in terms of making these. I mean, you make a platformer, it can be pretty simple, but also you can have just anything go wrong. So, I mean, I think that is, like you're saying, it adds to that fun of, well, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna start running and hopefully, and start jumping and hopefully make it to the end. And then you mess up, okay, we'll try something different. And like we said, there's so much variation with these characters that it can make just so many different ways to tackle the problem. And it all comes together into this really entertaining thing. It's just a lot of fun to, like, it's like a big experiment. It really is. It's just experimenting with the stuff that you're given. And that's the best kind of puzzle game, I feel.
Thomas did not like the cloud. He'd long since stopped listing his observations, but he instinctively observed that this thing was bad. And he'd been right about the water.
So looking at what I have, I mean, we basically you tackled most of the questions that I had. I was gonna ask you what was the hardest and most unforgiving puzzle that you faced, but probably like the glitchy ones, am I right? Or is there one that really, like, stuck in your head that was crazy?
So it was actually the one I it was the one I stopped on Steam Deck with and then picked back up on my PC with
Okay,
4.3.
4.3. I'm gonna look that one up just to see if I recall that one.
So it's the one where you have to do a lot of trial and error. So it has you start
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
this one. I'll briefly explain it. You got John on one side in his own little area.
kind of cut off from everyone else.
Right, and then you're given Laura, Claire, and Chris, but Claire can't jump very well, and, I mean, honestly, neither can Chris, but he's gotta use her. I mean, they both have to use Laura to get up onto a platform. Chris has to use Claire to jump up onto another his own little, like, everyone's on their own little path, And it also utilizes, as I'm seeing, that crazy thing where you have to kinda risk it all by letting Claire get as far off of a platform she can without falling to make her jumps farther, which is, like, can be wicked hard.
Well, actually, that's actually the thing that I kind of had. I just had the feel. I just had this kind of zen moment of, or just this realization that if this were a modern game, like, because you can have Claire at a point where if it were a modern game, she'd just fall off because of that's how the physics would be,
Mhm.
and like um, so the platforming actually with Claire in in that particular one, it reminded me of, actually, okay, to just say this about the entire game, it reminded me of something I'd see on an ancient console, like
Oh, like an Atari type game?
that, yeah, or even Magnavox Odyssey, because like there are
Okay.
certain, it has the bleeps and the bloops.
Yeah, yeah, no, this game could definitely have been made in, like, the Pong era, and it would have fit in just fine. I'm sure it wasn't, like I said, with the engine, I'm sure it wasn't really pushing it to its limits in terms of what it can do, and I even wrote in my notes that the platforming feels kind of floaty, but simultaneously it just feels right. Like, I really don't have a problem with how at least on PS4, I was noticing my button presses felt a little delayed, but it's one of those things where you kind of fall into, okay, I get how this works. I just have to like hold the button down a little longer or something. And it's just, you just get into this mode and you're able to play it just fine. It just takes takes a little bit.
Yeah, a
I
little
don't
bit.
know if it's like,
Um, it was similar on PC.
okay.
And just going back briefly to the, I don't know if if it's a bug or just how the game is. There's a there's a part with John, Claire, and Laura where you have Claire jump on Laura, and then you have John jump off a platform, like a kind of like a wall platform,
Hmm.
onto Claire, who is simultaneously bouncing on Laura, find a way to jump, like to find a way to bounce or jump off Clara, who is
Yes.
bouncing off, and it just, I was noticing that as soon as I jumped, like if I tried to jump off one, like upon, like after landing, I couldn't really do that.
Yeah, your jump wouldn't be as high if you gave it too long. Like the collision there was weird.
Yeah, like it's not even that wouldn't be too long. I just could not jump at certain points. I just was not an option.
Oh, weird. And that makes you question it. That leaves
Yeah,
you sitting there like, "Is this what I'm supposed to do?"
yeah. Like, is this part intended? Like, is this intended by the developer, or like is this intended? Like, yeah, like, is it intended, or is this just a glitch that was happening that happened in the process of translating it over to the different platforms?
Yeah. And I remember there are certain ones, like, you'll find a lot in this game, there's, like, stepping stone ones where you kinda have to you gotta line John up because he's the longest and then or the tallest, and then you got Thomas, and then you've made stepping stones for Chris, and and I found so many times, like, you feel like you're cheating by going about it some different way,
Oh
but
yeah,
if you
definitely.
can you'll spend extra long on it, and then you've bypassed a large portion of the puzzle that you could have and should have done, but you're like, "Screw it, I went my way." And it's just like, it kinda rewards you in the end. You feel great for finding a different path. Oh, it's just so cool. I'm, like, really excited that
And
it feels so good to talk about this.
not even that, the like something else that we didn't really talk about, the variations on the stone, the stuff like the buttons, for example, how 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 it just introduces them as yep, doesn't matter who or any if you can make it there with this with whatever character, you can press the button.
Oh, really? If you could make it there with anyone, you could press them?
At least or at least when they're first introduced,
I
the
got you, like the white ones.
yeah, the white ones, but then there are the certain ones, or after a certain point, it just becomes you have to color associated or character associated ones.
Mhm. But yeah, for the white ones, you can just yeah, whoever's
Yeah.
gonna make it easier for you, just go for it, and that opens it all up. I remember there's one level that I thought was really fun, where you just kinda throw all of them into a pit, and then you just kinda bounce. I think you keep Lara at the bottom, and then whenever someone goes off and presses a button, she falls a little deeper, the pit goes deeper. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to go to the right side. And for a couple of those, you're just like, oh, anybody could try this branched off path to get to the button. And it just made everybody feel like they were a part of something. And it's just so great. Like you even in those moments where you're just playing a puzzle game, like the narration, it was there, but now it's quiet. You're just getting that music. Like you you just feel like you're overcoming a goal with a team, even though they're just shapes. Did did you keep, like, the sound on, or did you find that getting annoying at some point?
As much as at certain points I was getting a little fed up with it. I did not turn it down at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good ambient noise. I think I turned the, sound effects down because that last sound whenever people make it to the end and they get in their places, that transition sound can be kinda loud and annoying. But otherwise, I kept that music pretty good, and you just kind of fall you get lulled into it. It's very, standard puzzle game music that works with the environment.
Thomas could tell Chris was in love, and that was fantastic and everything, but that didn't mean they could let the doom cloud keep following them. Thomas was going to put his foot down once they got to the next level.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess my final question for you, which sounds corny, but it needs to be asked, who's your favorite character so far?
John.
Okay, because of his all the world's a stage attitude?
Uh, that and well, I I saw I got a preview of the character of who starts off the next the other half of the game. So I
Yes, James, is that his name?
I don't know. All I know is that it just says like I'm just he's Viridian green. So
Yes. So what, you think that you'll enjoy him?
I might because of the his power, like his ability could actually it presents a I didn't actually play as the character yet. All I saw was the character. But that particular style, I'm assuming, based on the chapter name, I have a feeling I might like that.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of, is it VVV?
That's actually one I've never played that game.
Me neither. I think, Josh has a video up on the YouTube channel from a long time a whole Let's Play, I believe he did,
Yeah,
of it, but I've still never played it. That's another one that's, like, on every platform, and I think even mobile, and I just have never touched it, but it's got that, as this chapter says, inverse type of gameplay, and yeah, this should be an exciting back half. So, I mean, I guess my favorite would probably be Claire. I think her story is really fun, and it's just kind of like it, she seems the most like excited about whatever their journey is, even though she's kind of under this guise that she has superpowers. But like, whatever gets you through it. And of course I'm partial to Thomas because he just, I don't know, he's kind of our main character in a way, but I mean they all are. They all work together well. So, but yes, I'm very happy that you are on this journey with me. I hope that some people listening are also on the journey and that we will have this wrapped up soon. So my plan, I mean, we're recording this a little later than I had said. We're doing this Wednesday night. I'll probably have this available ooh, up Friday at the very latest. And then my thought is I might even push it out till next Sunday. I'll probably end up making a tweet about it that will go until the following Sunday. So that would be perfect. And then we'll probably take a break for a little bit before we do another one of these. But I'm just happy it's up and running. So, Alan, thank you for joining me.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
And thank you, of course, for playing. I'm happy that you were able to. It's a shame Josh wasn't able to with his whole thing going on, but I hope that this gets people to want to play this game because it's definitely one that stands the test of time and is a true indie classic. So, yes, again, I have been Graydon. This has been the Indie Book Club. I should have some kind of fun sign off. But yeah, let's get back to the game. And we'll see you around.